if people chomp, it means that they really like the food. You go past the fence of the dormitory and you see this man peeing on the fence. After some time, I was like, okay, get out of my way. I'm crossing the street now, not you. I think many of you have heard some crazy stories about Chinese people, about China, how they behave and stuff like that. Crazy not because they're actually crazy, but because they are not similar to any other European culture we know or we come from. In this video, I will share my culture shocks I experienced living in China. Moving to China was my first and culture experience. Obviously, my biggest culture shock ever. If you're going to study in China or you're moving to China or you are in China and you feel like you're going crazy, I hope my video can help you. And for those who just want to know more about China, welcome too. Maybe you heard that Chinese people actually have this food cult, the same as in France. Chinese people really value their food, their cuisine, and meals during a day are very important for them. And the first thing you can notice is the cult of lunch. Again, very similar to French people, is that at 12 o'clock nothing will work. I mean, some companies, offices, everything will be closed because everyone will be outside in a cafe, restaurant, all those places will be full of people because Chinese people actually prefer going out when they eat, when they have lunch, dinner, etc. because it's cheap, the quality of food is very high, and they cook really tasty. So if you love Chinese food, well, believe me, you have to go to China and try it. And actually, Chinese apartments, they're super small, and the kitchens are even smaller because it's not common for Chinese people to cook. And most youngsters, I think all the youngsters I've met and I've communicated with, even like adults already, they can't cook. They don't know how to cook. Their parents, I think they still know some Chinese food, but for youngsters, no, they know nothing. If life makes them cook, then they learn how to cook. I think after COVID it could have changed, that obviously they spend so much time being locked at their homes. Of course, I think they learned how to cook, but again, I believe that it's not that popular and people still prefer going outside. The first culture shock is their lunch, that at 12 everybody is in the cafes and cafes are full of people. And another thing comes to the first fact is their eating habits. It's very interesting because when you imagine Chinese food, most probably you could picture like a noodle with some fillings all mixed, rice with some fillings mixed. However, they take one side dish, for example rice, of course they love rice, they order some additional dishes, for example meat, vegetables, and always several, really plenty of dishes on the table, and they use rice, I think even like bread. So rice is like bread for them. They really love it, and it's like a base for any other dish, and they just take rice, take meat, take rice, meat and vegetables, and they mix it all together. And it's really interesting to see because it's not in one plate, it's all in different plates, and really many Chinese people prefer eating this way. However, of course, there are dishes that exist in the way we picture them, like a bowl of rice full with some other fillings and additional products. Of course they have it. I saw really many people eating it the way I described before. Another thing which goes with eating is some noises they love to make, for example champing or something like that. So the thing is that in my home country, in my culture, champing is not polite, it's even rude and a bit disgusting, so I really hate when people chomp. But the thing is that in China it has the opposite meaning, that if people chomp, it means that they really like the food. And for example, if they visit someone and for example somebody cooks those dishes, they're like, okay, we chomp, and it means that we say thank you, that they are super tasty and we are enjoying them. And for me, of course, it was a culture shock when you sit in a cafe full of Chinese people chomping, making other noises, speaking, and it's something. So you have to be ready, actually, and not to be in shock and not to say to somebody like don't chomp, because I think that it would be really rude. And there are some other maybe not very pleasant for us Europeans habits, for example blowing their nose. I have a perfect story for this culture shock. We were rehearsing a dance for a festival on campus. Between like several buildings we had the square, and we put speakers and danced, and we took a pause, and there was just this woman in a suit going across that square. Just maybe she was leaving the university, because she seemed to be like a professor or a university employee. She was walking calmly, but then when she reached a tree, she just stopped and unexpectedly blew her nose the way men do it, like this, without any tissue or anything. And I was looking at this picture and I was like, oh my god, what is going on? Because like I didn't expect anything like this, because she was walking calmly and nothing could say to me that she was going to do what she did. And I was like, oh my god, what is going on? But for them, it's absolutely okay to blow your nose or to pee on the fence. Well, most probably it's common for men, because for women it's not that easy to pee on the fence. But yeah, it's a common story. Like you go outside from your dormitory and you go past the fence of the dormitory and you see this man peeing on the fence of the dormitory. Nothing says anything, because, well, it's common for them. It's like in Paris, people just pee outside in some not hidden places, on the open air. I mean, like, it's still like a culture shock, both in Paris, both in Beijing and in whole China. I mean, like, you just have to be prepared, because it happens everywhere. And after some time, of course, you get used to it. You're like, okay, he's peeing on the fence. Like, well, what's the matter? Like, nothing goes wrong, And yeah, you just learn to live with this. That's how it works. And then, together with all of those precious habits of Chinese people, the thing you notice a lot if you come from a country which is relatively clean is the garbage. Garbage everywhere. At that time, I was moving from Russia to China, and in my hometown, there was tons of garbage everywhere. It's a really dirty town. However, when I moved to Beijing, I was like, oh my god, that's what the garbage is. Because I was like surprised, I was shocked by the amount of garbage everywhere. And by the type of garbage. Because, even though my hometown is dirty, full of garbage, people usually throw away, like the small part of a cigarette, or I don't know, a package from candy or ice cream or something. Like, it's still garbage, yeah, but not that big, because in China you can just walk along the street and you would see those, food containers laying on the ground. So people take out the food at a cafe and they threw the package away just on the grass. And there's plenty of garbage everywhere. And again, you get used to it after some time, but when you see this contrast, first you come to the country, it's just amazing. yeah, definitely. Talking about Chinese food, I'm really a big fan of Chinese food, and I'm going to film a video about my favorite Chinese dishes. Subscribe to see more. Then another crazy thing about China is their crazy traffic on the roads. Well, of course you can imagine, I lived in Beijing. If I'm not mistaken, Beijing is the biggest Chinese city, so you can picture how crazy it is on the roads, because there is this big number of cars on the streets. Funny fact about cars, that you can't just buy a car. So if you have money, you go to a salon and you buy a car. No, you have to get a permission, and not even get, but to win a permission, because every year they give a certain number of permissions to people to buy a car, because there's just too many people and too many cars on the roads, and they want to fight with this in such a way. So it's interesting. So you can imagine that drivers, they want to cross any traffic lights or pedestrian areas as fast as possible. And even if, you're a pedestrian, you're on the pedestrian area and you have green light, it doesn't mean that you can just go and cross the street. No one will let you do this, because people in the cars, they just want to go past. And if you're not brave enough, if you're not ready just to step on the road and to stop the car by your hand, most probably you will wait for ages to cross the street. Especially dangerous are the areas that are without traffic lights, because it's even worse there. You have this pedestrian area, but you just do not feel safe crossing this pedestrian area. So yeah, but again, you get used to it. After some time, it's like, okay, get out of my way, I'm crossing the street. street, now not you, like a taxi driver or somebody like this. And they have these bike lanes, and on the bike lanes, it's I think it's even crazier because all the delivery men, they use those scooters, and they are crazy drivers on those scooters. Oh my god. Again, they need to get to a point where they need to deliver a food or anything else as fast as possible, and it's also crazy. And if you bike in Beijing, it also can be pretty dangerous. Imagine this summer day. In Beijing, summer is super hot. It's like 30-something degrees. Heat feels even worse than usual. And you're just in the center of the city or in any park, because there are tons of parks in any Chinese city. And you see those brilliant men with naked tummies. Why, you may ask? Because they feel hot. And it's everywhere. Any man can do it. For me, it's a bit unpleasant. It's another thing to get used to, and a thing that you can see really a lot. Finally, something good that you can get used to, and it will only do some good for you. It's activities in the evening. So before going to China, there was this head of in the international office of my Russian university. She had visited China before, and she was saying that people in China are something else because they dance at night, they sing at night. I'm like, what? What is going on in that country? When we arrived in China, of course, walking around the parks, we saw those people dancing and doing some other stuff. So it's interesting. They have their community. They get together. They bring huge speakers and they dance. They dance different types of dances, like tango, some flash mobs. They even dance at work. I was living on the 13th floor in a dormitory, and I could see the whole street from my window, and there was this cafe nearby. I don't know, noodles, dumplings, something like that. The workers, the employees, every day at 6 o'clock, they went out from their cafe and danced a flash mob dance. I was like, what is going on? It was so surprising. It was so unusual. I couldn't understand why they were doing it. Maybe it was like kind of a pause for them, to relax, to move or something like that. But it was so funny and so unexpected to see. And it happened every day. Every day at 6, we were at the dormitory with my roommate. We were like, okay, let's see their dance again. And they were dancing the same dance. As long as we were watching, they were dancing the same one. So it's interesting. And they are actually doing some other stuff too. So it can be some martial arts, so you could see this people doing something like this, and it's so unusual that you feel this sense of community. You want to join. We were dancing with them, and it was amazing because it keeps you active. And there are so many people that were playing like table tennis outside, like especially elderly people that surprised me the most. They did some sports. They are super active, and it was definitely culture shock, and it made me move more myself. So I'm really grateful for that experience. Some places that I visited a lot being in Beijing, those were Carrefour and IKEA. Carrefour is a French supermarket. We visited it a lot because obviously they sold some European products, and I just love this store, and we went there a lot. And IKEA, of course, we didn't need any furniture because, well, we had everything in the dormitory, but we went there to eat some European food, like those famous meatballs, stuff like that. But before coming to the cafe itself, of course, we were going around the IKEA, looking at some furniture, and the first time I came there, and I saw how people were actually sleeping on the furniture. I was like, wait a second. What is going on here? The thing is that, I don't know why, but Chinese people just have this habit of sleeping in IKEA. Just like that. They come, they bring their babies and put them to sleep during the day. They come and sleep themselves. It was a big culture shock for me, but after some time, we also when we went to IKEA, we could also lie on the bed, and it was fine afterwards. But at first, it was really big culture shock. I could say that definitely COVID changed China too, as well as other countries. I think that nowadays they can cook at home more often because they still have these terrible COVID restrictions, and I'm really sorry for them, and I hope that it will end soon. Of course, China is changing. Everything is changing because they have really fast speed of constructing anything. I could like one day I could go along the street where we lived, and there was this cafe, like noodles cafe, and next day I could go and there would be like a hair salon, and they could build it like for a week or even less. They are super fast. So yeah, China is full of surprises. Even though I mentioned some negative things in the video, I really love this country. I miss it. I miss the food so much. So the video about Chinese food is coming. I'm full of emotions about this country. If you want to know more, let me know in the comments below, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.